Let's talk about it, y'all. Mass shootings, school violence, and the entertainment industry. Tonight, I am going to tackle a pressing issue that affects students, parents, and administrators in the U.S. public school system. The alarming attacks are on the rise, shootings and violence amongst youth in the education system. The deliberate question tonight is: do local television, radio, music, entertainment industry play a role in shaping today's culture and youth violence? Join me as I discuss real world violence in our schools today, uncover the connections between harmful content and tragic events, and let's explore, forge a path to a safer and more responsible media. In today's show, with the Critical Line Network channel and podcast right after this. Welcome back to the Critical Line Network, where insight meets analysis and where conversations spark transformation. I am your host, IBK. Here at TCLN, we empower viewers like yourself by tackling the most pressing social issues in culture, religion, politics, and business that are affecting Americans today. TCLN brings together today's leaders, tomorrow's visionaries, and passionate community activists for candid discussions that facilitate healing, education, and growth in America. And I want to start off today by saying it takes a village to raise a child. I know you've heard that before, and the truth is, it is true. When they're at home, it's the parents. When in school, it's the administrators. When in church, it's church leaders. And when in the public, we're not talking about cable, we're not talking about paid per view, but we are talking about local radio, television, entertainment. It is the FCC and other regulators. Let's talk about it today. Let's get into it. There is this discussion that has been going on a very, very long time about culture and influence and violence in the rap industry and the hip hop industry, but we rarely kind of talk about and hit on mass school shootings and violence in today's schools. And do local television and the entertainment industry, and perhaps even cable, even networks, are they some of the cause? I wouldn't say all of the cause, but are they some of the influence factors that these young people are dealing with today? And I want to start out by giving you like a few examples. And I'm going to start off with one example. I remember when I was young, and I was a young girl, and Steven Spielberg's The Jaws had came out, and it was a very, very highly popular movie. I mean, people all over was discussing this movie, and this movie had came out, and it had hit the movies, and then it had hit television. Well, at the time, I remember my mother telling me, I don't want you watching that movie because you're too young and that movie is not good for you to watch. Of course, me and my brother, we snuck and watched the movie anyway. You know how children are. Children have a habit of sneaking and watching things anyway. Now, mind you, in this movie, there wasn't a lot of vulgar things like sex, and it wasn't a lot of vulgar things like cursing, perhaps. It was a little bit of some things, but it wasn't a whole lot, as it is today, put it like that. But so we snuck and watched the movie, right? And so, of course, as a little girl, you are watching these sharks eat these people alive. You're watching these big teeth and you're watching this big old mammal. And this animal, this beast is just tearing these people apart. People are screaming, they're running all over the place. I'm talking from the mind of a young person, right? Not from an adult who can watch this, know that the shark is fake, know that all the stuff is fake. So fast forward, it came time to take a bath. So, as usual, my brother was assigned to run my bathwater, right? And for us to get ready for bed and do what we need to do, whether it was go to school or whatever it is we had to do, right? So, my brother runs my bathwater and he said, BC, which was my nickname, go take a bath. And I said, "Oh no, I'm not getting in that water, as a kid." And he was like, "Girl, you better go take a bath. I'm gonna tell mama if you don't go take a bath, home talk." And I said, "I'm not getting in that bath." I said, "Those sharks are gonna eat me up," because I correlated the ocean with the water in the tub. Now, mind you, when children are little, children sometimes don't have the balance to balance out the ideas that they see in the movie versus the things they are going through real life. So for some reason, I really thought those sharks was going to eat me up in the tub, in the bath water. Somehow the water in the ocean became the water in my tub. And so, of course, when I was demanding that I wasn't going to take a bath, my mother came to see what was going on, what was the confusion all about, the combustion all about. And my brother told her she won't get in the tub because she afraid some sharks, the conversation. And my mother said, "Didn't I tell you not to watch that movie? I told you not to watch that movie. You was too young to watch that movie." And of course, I was made to take a bath, and you know how the story go. Well, the reason why I'm saying this today because in our society there is what they call a lot of mental issues. It's what they call a lot of unstableness in our culture today, and a lot of influence, and a lot of violence in music, and a lot of sexual promiscuity, not just in the music world, but now we're looking at it today on television, ABC, NBC, all these channels, right? There used to be a time where we grew up with Cosby's, Archie Bunker, Three's Company, like all of these sitcom shows we grew up with. And of course, they did have movies. Some of these movies were more adult themes, but they wasn't as violent as they are today, with the imagery, with the cursing, with the profaneness, with the sexual provocativeness, and also with the killings. There are a lot of killings. And even when we watch police officer shows, if you pay attention, there's always this cop shooting someone in the name of saving someone. So it's the reversal of psychology, right? But still, it's a gun and them shooting someone in the name of saving someone. I don't care what cop show you watch today, there's always have to be somebody who has to be shot. So again, a lot of murder, a lot of killing, and some of it is even vulgar, blood, like the images are just like really out there, right? Grotesque, the cursing, the behavior. You used to didn't find these things on local television. There was no way you would hear the word bitch or F you or any of those words that we hear today. Now, excuse me for saying that word, but of course, those words are said on our local radio stations. They are said on our local televisions. And again, the question is the local television. Again, I'm not talking about cable. I'm not talking about, pay per view. I'm not talking about things that you go above and beyond to get your adult entertainment. I am speaking of local television, radio, and entertainment. Has it gotten out of control? Is it not being monitored like it should be? So let's get into it. Let's talk about the latest school shooting that happened. So I am going to talk about this, and I know you've heard about it. If you haven't, you can go look it up, of course. But the latest school shooting that they had, let me look it up here for you. It was I don't know if I'm saying this right, but it was the Alapache High School out of Winder, Georgia. Again, I think it's Appalachie or something like that. You guys know. But anyway, out of Winter, Georgia. It happened on September the 4th, just this year. And there were 4 people killed. There were 2 students and 2 teachers, and 9 others were injured. Now, again, this was a 14-year-old student. His name was Colt Gray, and he was taken, of course, into custody, and he was charged with 4 counts of felony murder. Can you imagine that? 14 years old, 4 counts of felony murder. And of course, his father has also been charged with second-degree murder and then voluntary manslaughter for providing the gun that was used in the shooting. In addition to this shooting, pay attention, guys. This high school shooting that just happened on September 4th. Within just the year alone, which is not even over, in the year 2024 in the US, there has been 22 other school shootings, resulting in 11 deaths and 38 injuries. Okay. Okay. Later in the show, I'm kind of going to go over some previous school shootings, but I just want that to marinate with you for a moment. 22 other school shootings in 2024. And with the Appalachia, or however you pronounce that, high school shooting, altogether, that's been 23 so far. So, again, I want to ask you the question: do you believe that the culture is influencing? Or maybe you don't believe that. Maybe you have other beliefs. Maybe you just kind of believe that, it's a lack of parents not monitoring their children. Maybe you believe that, it's God. These children don't have God. People don't turn to the church like they used to. Maybe you even question, maybe it's like, are they born that way? Do you believe in good versus evil? And do you believe that some children are born good, or do you believe that some children have a disposition to have that type of nature? You know, I ask these questions because I really do believe, guys, they are important because people think all kinds of ways. That's why I'm asking different ways. People really do believe all different types of way. They don't believe just one way. And if we just narrow it down and make it so narrow where we just have one discussion and we just have one way of talking, then you don't open up the dialogue for the many different ways that people think and introduce the many different ideas on maybe why people do what they do. We do understand this underlying factor: evil is evil. To kill people is just evil, no matter how you put it. But we're talking about the influences of these evils and how they stem, and the I guess you can say core of order of where they stem from. Some people believe even in MK, what they call MK Ultra, you know, that sometimes these people are programmed, and when triggered, they will act. And so, again, you have so many different people who believe different things. So, let me kind of start out on what I want to say. So, how I want to say this is this: do you believe that the artist is responsible for the content, the writer, the artists, the producers, the networks? Do you believe that they're responsible for the content that it releases to the public? And if that content is full of murder, cursing, lasciviousness, sexual provocativeness, especially when it comes to the youth, do you think that they have a responsibility in what they put out on local radio stations and local television stations? Also, do you believe that the FCC should make more regulation, or should they get involved and get involved and monitor more what is placed on these local stations? Or do you just believe that they shouldn't be involved and it's the parents solely? Again, I'm asking this because the reason why I ask this, because there are dynamics. When a parent goes to work, or even if a parent doesn't work, as far as the public school system is concerned, if your children do not go to school, it is illegal. So that's why I say it takes a village to raise children. And when children are away at school, who's raising the child? Who's dealing with the child? Because when you're at home and you're the parent, you say so much to your children, you instill so much to your children, but your children have to leave away. And when they leave away, they have to deal with other influences, other children perhaps, that may not be raised accordingly to what you may raise them at home. There may be, listen, y'all, there have been teachers twerking in school. There've been all kind of teachers doing stuff in school. So the dynamics have changed. It's not like back in the day, you go home, you go to school, like in Mr. Roger neighborhood, you go to church, you go play soccer, and you go home. We're living in a total different age today. Children are carrying phones, there is social media. Like, you really have to understand the dynamics have changed. And so that's why it's important to recognize when dynamics have changed and when things have shifted. How do we think differently? Because sometimes we be stuck in two different ways. Either we're stuck in the old way of, well, we used to do it like this. Well, the dynamics have changed. You have so much now. You have laptops, computers, you have phones. You see little kids in strollers with their little fingers texting or playing video games. You're like, what? You know. And then you have, you know, friends, like, well, you've always had friends and influences in culture, when it came to when you leave the home. Now you have to deal with different families in different homes because different children are taught different ways and brought up different ways. So that's why I ask these different questions. It's very, very important. It's very important as we, get up to the topic and line up to the topic. Now, when we are dealing with this topic of gun violence and shootings, if you look at some of the videos on TikTok, and I'm pretty sure you've came across them and you've came across it on maybe, well, not so much Instagram, not so much, well, YouTube and TikTok for sure. We're talking about young adults. They are literally beating the heck out of other young adults. We're talking about youth. When I say young adults, let me take it back down to youth, because when you're in high school, it's youth and teenagers. When we say beating, we're talking about beating like you're a grown person. We're talking about beating, snatching out hair, pulling out clothes, busting up teeth. We're talking about beatings, right? Things that you would expect adults to see. Now, let me rewind a little bit. Because I remember when I went to school at H.S. Thompson in Dallas, Texas. It was, to me as a child, it was one of the most worst schools up on the face of the planet. It's shut down now. It needs to be shut down. It was horrible. It was horrible. I'm not going to lie. And not only were the students very abusive, the teachers were very abusive. And I remember there was a time when you would have to deal with so much targeting as a young person. You talk about bullying in the schools. It was so much targeting. It would be like 10 and 15 kids chasing home one child. And if anybody knows Dallas and HS Thompson, there's a train track that runs through there. Every morning and every afternoon, they would do an announcement over the PA system. And they will remind children, do not run over the train tracks. Be careful of the train tracks, because trains would run through there every morning, every evening. And so again, if anybody kind of remember the history of that in South Dallas, a lot of children stayed in the projects at that time in Bonton, South Dallas projects. But it was so horrible. Like 10 or 15 kids would double team one child, would harm just one child. And we were talking about like beating kids back in the day, other kids, first and second graders beating other kids until they bleed. Like seriously, y'all. So, but what is this distinguishing am I trying to make? I'm trying to say that even though that stuff was happening then, you didn't have school shootings. Like, let me remind you, we went through the most horrible things, y'all, as young children. It was so horrible. Let me make another distinction, that when you were young, if you got on your period in the fifth and sixth grade as a young girl, it was the most embarrassing. You would rather for three girls to jump on you at the locker than for you to get on your period and you have a stain on the back of your period, on the back of your pants, and the boys saw it. Like that was literally the end all and be all. How have the dynamics changed? Well, go to school today. The boy will walk inside the school and buy his girlfriend some tampons, or inside the store like it's nothing. Like it's nothing today. It's nothing. Do you hear me? It's nothing. Like, who cares about that? It's nothing. Nobody goes around the school laughing. Nobody goes around the school making fun. It's nothing today. But then you would die behind something like that. You would pretend like you were sick and you wasn't well, and you fake a fever and you fake everything just not to go to school. So that's what I mean by, from 20 years ago to, like 25 to 30 years ago, dynamics have changed. And there are so many more influences today. Because back then, when you went through all those things, you never went home and thought about, I am going to pick up a gun and I'm going to shoot them for jumping on me like that. I'm going to kill them for laughing at me on my period. I'm going to get that teacher for that teacher making a fool of me in class. Like it just never crossed your mind. Like those things just the most you would do was skip school and sign your report card. Today everything is electronic, guys. You know that. But back then, you were fain. You knew your parents' signatures. You knew how to a signature exactly like your parent wrote it, honey, because you knew if you was skipping school, whatever you were doing. But that's the most you would do. Everything was inverted. It wasn't outverted. Especially if you was a tender child and you was a precious child, like you just wanted relief from the pain, from the laughter, from the making being made fun of, but you never thought I'm going to shoot these people or kill these people or destroy these people. You didn't even think to pray an evil prayer against them. Like anything. So that's what I mean by so much has changed today. And that's why I'm asking, do you believe that culture, entertainment, music, if it's influencing adults, don't you think it's influencing young people? The dynamics have changed, right? So that's why I kind of bring this up a little bit, right? So let's get to previous mass shootings. So we're gonna go back in 1999. And I'm just gonna name a few. This was the Columbine High School, April 20th, 1999. Middleton, Colorado. The shooters were Eric Harris. He was 18. I'm doing this for a reason so you can see the ages, you can see the cities, and you can really see that this not only affects one town, one city, it's been all over America, and it's diverse ages between the ages of anywhere I believe between 10 all the way up to 27. But anyway, the deaths or the casualties were 13 killed and 24 injured. And excuse me, the other shooter was Dylan, I think that's Keelbold, and he was 17 years old. Virginia Tech, April 16th, 2007. Location Blackverse, Virginia. The shooter, Sung Hugh Cho, age 24. As you can see, these are diverse races also. The casualties, 32 killed, 17 injured. Sandy Brook Elementary School, December 14th, 2012, Newtown, Connecticut. The shooter was Adam Lanza, 20 years old. Casualties, 26 killed, 20 children, 6 adults, and 2 injured. Come on, y'all. Wow. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, February 14th, 2018. Location Parkland, Florida. The casualty was 17 killed and 17 injured. Santa Fe High School, May 18th, 2018. The location was Santa Fe, Texas. The shooter was Demetrios. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Paganosis or something like that. You can look it up. He was 17 years old. Casualties, 10 killed, 13 injured. Nicholas Cruz, which was at Parkland, Florida. I'm sorry, I'm jumping back. He was 17. No, he was 19. He was 19. So Uqua Community College, Rosenberg, Oregon. The shooter was Chris Harper Mercer. He was 26, 9 killed, 8 injured. Red Lake Senior High School, March 21st, 2005. Jeffrey Wise, 16 years old, 9 killed, 5 injured. Okay. Kies University, location Oakland, California. It says one goal. He was 43, and there were 7 killed and 3 injured. And this was at a university. Another university, Northern Illinois University, February 14th, 2008. Ecklout, Illinois. Stephen Casimir, y'all got to go look up these names, guys. 27 years old, 5 killed, 17 injured. Cobb Elementary School, May 24th, 2022. Location Uvalde, Texas. Killer or shooter Salvador Ramos, 18 years old, 21 killed, guys. 18 years old, 21 killed, 19 children and 2 adults, 17 injured. Now, there's been more, but I just wanted to name some notable ones. Why am I saying these, guys? Because this gives you variety. It's showing you something. It's showing you that this started lining up from 1990s. You really have to pay attention. Why the 1990s? I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you some more. 90s elementary school shooting, 1989. It started in 89. So you didn't have many or you didn't have many of these school shootings in the 80s, I mean in the 80s. But you also didn't have social media. You also didn't have all the vulgarness inside of what we see today in the entertainment industry. And if you did have it, you had to rent it on a DVD. Remember that? And you had to be a certain age to go to Blockbuster to get these movies. And remember, parents were more responsible back then. You couldn't watch all of that stuff. They could, adult entertainment, but you couldn't. And if you did, you snuck and did it. Not because they allowed you. Today, the parents allow you. So pay attention. So in 1989, you had Cleveland Elementary School shooting. And guys, if you are listening, comment below. If there's some things that you know or some statements that you want to make, please join in the discussion. This is very, very important, guys. Why? Because your kids go to school, mine grown. They big grown 30 years olds, but yours go to school. So remember, this is important for you guys. Don't sit back on this. Don't think, oh, it's just those people. Well, trust me, it spreads. It spreads. It's even gotten to private schools, all kind of school. It spreads. So pay attention, y'all. So back in 1989, you had Cleveland Elementary School shooting. Location, Stockton, California. Shooter, Patrick Purdy. He was 26, right? He was 26. You had Lyndhurst High School, a shooting, 1992. This is when we adding up in the 90s. Location, Olivehurst, California. Shooter, Eric Houston, an expelled student. Then you had West Side Middle School. Now, these are high schools, guys, and middle schools. 1998. Location, Jonesboro, Arkansas. Shooter, Mitchell Johnson, 13 years old, guys. Andrew Golden, 11 years old. Peep game, y'all. 13 and 11 years old. This was in 1998. Then you had the Columbine High School Massacre, 99. Middleton, Colorado. Shooters, Eric Harris, 18. Island, Cabot, I went over them, 17. The reason why I went over the 90s, because the 90s is important. Y'all remember the 90s, right? So the 80s was adding up to more of a little bit of sexual provocative. Too grotesque, but it was adding up because you had Madonna, you had Prince, you had what's his name? I Want Your Sex. And we were young kids watching this. What's his name? You guys know his name. He was fine. He was handsome. Come to find out he was gay. I want your sex. Doom, 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 doom. And then you had Madonna when she did it was such a big uproar because she did the Catholic statue, Mother Mary, and she had Jesus and she had this black man. And here you go, this Italian girl. And to the Catholic community, that was just totally disrespectful, right? So that was in the uproar. But it still wasn't like take off your clothes, get naked, humpy, 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 cursing. It still hadn't gotten to the point. That's what I mean. I'm giving you little clues on how it started, like transpositioning and transitioning into the era that we in today. So when we were young, we had on MTV, BET, the most provocative we had was stuff like that. And then we had Salt and Pepper, shake your thing. Oh, do what you want to do. And then they had the little shorts and they had the little jeans and the little tops, but it still wasn't looking at people in bed, butt naked thing. You understand that? And so that's the most it got. And you always had Prince with his little sexy songs and, me in the red Corvette, and just different little things, and the little sexual insinuations. You understand what I'm saying? But not what we see today. We're talking about local television. Because remember, well, BET, MTV was more cable, but still, it was still on the radios and stuff. So That's why I wanted to give you a little bit of history of the 90s, because now we are adding up to there wasn't much of this, what you call school shooting at all in the 80s. And surely kids was going through some of the same things. And there wasn't in the 90s, you had about three or four or five, as you can see, right? But as the 90s go on, you got more and more detailed. You got away from the Cosbys, you got away from Archie Bunker and them. You started getting the movies, you started getting the, the cop shows. They, because back then we had Miami Vice, we had certain things, but now we had Murder She Wrote and all of that. But you would never see like blood everywhere, stabbings everywhere. It would be the insinuation thereof. You would see it, but not to such a vulgar as the images you see today. So look at time and look at how things have evolved. That's why I'm asking, do you believe that culture, again, is influencing these things? So that's why I wanted to give you a little bit background, a little bit, give me a taste, of history. I'm kind of glad we was born in between that time, because when we speak, we're bringing experience and we're giving you the in-betweens. You understand what I'm saying? Not to say it was perfect back then. It wasn't. Everything that's happening today, it was happening then. Sexual molestation, trafficking of kids, kidnapping of kids, all this kind of stuff. But I'm saying, was kids killing like that with mass shootings? That's the topic I'm addressing now. And is culture of influencing that? So let me read this to you. According to experts from these sources, when they gathered this information about these school shootings, they said that the common factors was that most shooters, I'm sorry, were current or former students, often facing either mental illness issues, bullying, pay attention guys, bullying or social isolation. Many use legally purchased firearms or obtained weapons from family members. So that means that when families had these weapons in the household, they would go and get these weapons and use their parents' weapons. Not that the parents necessarily gave it to them. Now, personally, I can go deeper with you about spiritual influence when it comes to mental manipulation, the occult and witchcraft influences when it comes to these kids. Now I can go deeper because adults go through influence just like young people go through influence. Sometimes when a young person is not aware that they're being influenced, they will act out of things that they think that themselves. You understand what I'm saying? And it's an influence of other people and other sources. So I wanted to add that on too. I don't want to subtract that. That's what this show is all about. This show is all about healing, education, growth, knowledge. You understand what I'm saying? So we can't subtract that there are influences. I'm not just talking about the entertainment industry culture, which a lot of these influences, what I just named, is or do reside in entertainment. So, but I wanted to just give you, I wanted to add that on, but I want to give you what they were also saying too. Now, and all of this is associated with media that is violent on televisions, vulgar in music on radios, and social media content and video games. Let's not leave out video games. You have a whole culture, y'all, that is affecting these children today. We may don't want to take responsibility. We may don't want to admit that, but it is so true. So now, look at the video games. You can't even play a decent video game without shooting and killing. In order to win, pie shoot and kill, blood spattered. So these ideas are being ingrained in them. You understand that? So again, that's why I wanted to touch on that a little bit. Now let's go back to, I want to hit on this right here. Exposure to violence. Now, when a child comes out of the womb, of course, there's arguments whether we have different propensities or not, or if things are passed to us from our parents or not, or whatever the arguments may be. There are different arguments for different things, right? And that's understandable because people have different ideas. What I want to touch on is exposure. Exposure. Remember, on a positive and a negative, you deal with exposure. So let's just give a positive example. Let's just say you grew up in the projects, you never heard about finances, you never heard about all these things. And 27 years of your life, you lived the way you thought finances were supposed to go. And you didn't even know that you could be an entrepreneur, own businesses, and all this kind of stuff. You're one child, and then there's another child who's been exposed to all of that. So let's just say and they're way ahead of you. So let's just say you've never been exposed to that. And then you finally get exposure. How do you feel? You're like a kid in a candy store. Oh my God. There's one part of you that you feel so good that you're learning this knowledge, you're learning this information, and life looks hopeful. There's another part of you that's saddened because your years were robbed because that information was withheld from you and it wasn't instilled in you like the other kids. And they're years ahead of you. You know what I'm saying? You're 27 now. You're just now getting it. Somebody got that at 14 and 15 and they're running businesses. They're way ahead of you. And it's disappointing. It's disheartening. So that's why I say exposure. And I'm going to tie that in to violence, to young people being exposed to so much sexual promiscuity, so much cursing, so much violence. It becomes the culture, it becomes natural. You look at that little babies on the internet twerking in diapers. It's natural. It's all they see. It's no longer a choice. It's no longer peer pressure from when you know how when it's home you couldn't wear makeup till you was 16, but all your friend girls at school wore makeup, especially your white girls. With black girls, it was like, no, your parents knew that you was trying to put that lipstick on to look good for that boy. So no, you weren't gonna wear no makeup till you was 16. But with the white girls, you go to school and you say, oh, they wearing makeup, they doing this, and then it was a little bit different, right? So then you would go to school, you would sneak, you know what I'm saying? You would put the makeup on and then you make sure you wash it out before you get home, before you get to school. So again, we're not talking about like peer pressure at school. It's beyond that, y'all. It is so much dominant culture influence on every angle. Every angle. We're not just talking about watch a little, TV at home, local TV, parents ban what you watch on cable, like it was back then, and you go to church and go to soccer. No, we're talking about multiplicity of influence today. And that's why I'm saying, where does the responsibility lie? And that's why I'm asking you guys to engage and put your comments in there because it really do take a village to raise a child. Now, your role, if you are a content creator, a film or a music producer, or even a book writer with a platform, you communicate. That is your gift. Your gift is to bring knowledge and information into the world. How do you personally approach these topics within your own productions? Do you choose to say, I'm not responsible for your child and I'll make whatever the hell I want to make? Or on you are the only other end where you're conscientious and you say, I refuse to leave that type of legacy to the world? Put your comments below, y'all. Engage. Because the reason why it's important that you engage is because we get to see how you think and why you think the way you think. Because it's not that you right or wrong, it's the why behind what you think. Because then you bring us insight as the viewers, right? Now, for those of you who walk in truth and you understand that it really does take a village. You're responsible for your gift. You're responsible for your talent. You're responsible for how you put information out into the world. And you understand that there's a balance between creativity, integrity, and responsibility. As someone who grew up with radio and television myself, and I can name you every show, honey. Three's Company, 227. Let me think of them, honey. The Cosby shows, Archie Bunker, moving on up, every show you can think of. That was sitcom. To all of your family movies that you watched. To Incredible Hulk, to all of the things that we saw, we came home to the most shooting and killings that you saw on TV was cowboy shows. Remember they used to have the cowboy shows back then. Y'all remember that? Like they would have the cowboys, they'd be like, and they would get ready to draw their guns and they be fighting. Oh, they would do all that. But anyway, I don't have the agility that they have, but you know what I'm talking about. There was a lot of the stuff we saw as kids on television. I'm not talking about cable, I'm talking about more TV, local, because these channels still exist. Your CBS's, your NBC's, all of this stuff, right? So CBS, NBC, ABC, and the rest that go along with your radio stations, I would like to say to you, know your power, know your influence, guys. Understand that what you put on those televisions are powerful. Those images are powerful. As a little kid, go back to the Jaws show. As youth, with all of the stuff that's on television and it becomes so norm that gets inside those images, that communication. Guys, know your power. Know your power. And like Dr. Maya Angelou says, when we know better, we're supposed to do better. Know that you're different from cable. Know that you're different from pay per view, or you paying not pay per view, but you know what I'm talking about. These places that you have to pay for more adult themed content. You're different, guys. You're for the local. You're for the public. Guys, you're just different. I'm sorry. And it's my prayer that you get back to that responsibility. And it's my prayer that you hire people that desire that responsibility and you help make this world a better place. Please just start hiring people that care. Know that you have to make money. I'm very aware of that. And I know that people's tastes are different. Always have your paid versions or your locked up versions, and then always have your public versions. So just know that you play a role in your responsibility because you can't babysit kids. You're a content creator. But when you're working local, you're for the public. You're not the adult theme people. You're for the public. And parents, what can you do? What can you do? Let me tell you something about these school shootings that people don't want to talk about. Let's be honest, y'all. Let's be very, very honest. Teach your children to don't bully. Why do I say that? Again, if you go back and look at, they said the majority of these school shootings, it comes from number one, mental illness. You know, people make fun of people with they call mentally ill. They said it comes from bullying, number two. And then they said it comes from social isolation. Guys, how many times we grew up in school and people wanted to isolate you? They didn't want to play with you. They didn't think you were worthy enough. Or they thought you were strange, or they thought you were different. And the bullying, the school bullying. Because what they don't show you in the media, when they tell all these fantastical stories about, oh, this child done this child, oh my God, and people are frantic and people are crying all over the place. You know, the one story that people forget to tell? What did they say about the bully? How many years had they been harming the bully? And you know, kids can be cruel, y'all. We're talking about these kids curse today like they curse out adults. They say the most vulgar things. They try to harm, they attack, they jump, they beat. Look at all the violence. Just look at TikTok so you won't think I'm lying. So just imagine like what was said. So when these kids go home and they at school and they social isolate, who are they talking to? So they don't turn to nothing but television. They don't turn to nothing but music. They don't turn to nothing but dark things. It's all they know. And then that feeds them. And then all they need is that trigger. And they decide on that day. They be plotting it in their head. They decide, okay, I'm going to give you an example. Remember Incredible Hulk? Now, Incredible Hulk didn't necessarily kill people. But what would they do with Incredible Hulk? And we would watch that as kids. We're not talking about the cartoon. We talking about the real incredible, the original Incredible Hulk. What would they do? They would pick with him and pick with him and pick with him. He was strange and he was odd, but he was a nice guy. And they would pick with him and pick with him and pick with him and pick with him until that shirt began to bust. That shoulder began to raise. That it'll tear apart, right? Shoulder bust out. People would notice it, and then they'll call them crazy and say something. You crazy dodo. Bam, and it'll bust again. And then the people would look and say, okay, something happening here. And then he go, "Oh," and they say, okay, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But by that time, it was too late. Incredible Hulk will pick them up and throw them away across the thing somewhere. And they go, please, baby. And they go, and they try to take out running. He go, woo, pick them up and throw them up. So he was trying to warn them that something different. Leave me alone, please, but they wouldn't. So, not to say that, serial killers are Incredible Hulk, but when you see that people go through things, teach your children that it's not in their best interest to make fun. Because like I said, these are the stories that don't get told in school. They don't tell the side. They just mention that he had mental issues. They just mention that, oh, he was this or he was that. And that's it. But they don't take you through the process of what that person may have really suffered. So please teach your children, number one, don't bully. Also, be involved in your children's lives. Back then, you know, People didn't have a lot of money like they have today because social media has opened up the way where people could be millionaires, people can do all kind of stuff, but it's also opened up where people can just live their promiscuous, lascivious lives all over the place, and it just influences everybody. Whereas back then, that would be in your private communities and that wouldn't be affecting everyone. So be involved in your children's lives, whether they are 10, because they're not the earliest, but one of the shooters was 10 years old, guys. So be involved in your children's lives. Be involved. I know you got to work. I know you got to hump. I know you got to hustle. I know you got to get those bills paid, but you got to be involved in their lives. You got to know what's going on. You got to know what the conversation is. You got to know who they hanging around. You got to know what's going on. Be involved, and constantly instill in them the principles that you want them to have, and explain to them why you make the choices that you make concerning certain things that they shouldn't be watching or engaging in. Back in the day when they told us, well, like we would say, well, why come we can't do this and why come we can't go there and why come they would say, because I said so. Don't be asking me why. Who the adult, me or you? Shut up and close your mouth. When you get grown, move out my house and do what you want to do. But they never had the relationship to sit down with you and explain to you why. That's relation. That's what it's called, parent relationship. Talk to them. Tell them why. It's important that they know why. It's important that they know the consequences. This is not just people who make money that should do this. I don't care if you don't have $1 in your pocket. I don't care if you're on food stamps. I don't care what you going through. I don't care if you working a 9 to 5 and your pennies are scratching pennies. Still sit down with the child if it's nothing but 5 or 10 minutes just to say, baby, what's going on in your life? What happened today? Is anybody bullying you? Is everything okay? Don't be afraid to talk to me. Don't be afraid to open up. Is somebody talking to you about sex? You need to get into these children's lives. You need to get into their mind. Have a relationship. Now, for the artist, what can you do? Artists, I know I've heard Cardi B say it. Cardi B say, I am not here to raise your kids. I am an adult entertainer. And then the first time that Lil Culture heard something she wasn't supposed to hear, and Cardi B ran and covered up her ears and said, oh no, you can't hear that. So understand that even people who put out the most craziest content, Uchi Coochie content, understand that they children should be abstained from certain things, even though that's what they choose to do. I would say to Cardi B, if you ever come across this, Miss Cardi B, this is what I love to say about you. I believe you're brilliant. I believe that all that character you have is nothing but give me my money. Because I've heard you caught off guard and you don't talk like that. You're very educated. You're very knowledgeable, even though you have not really a college person. I've heard you talk to young girls and you have such a gift and you have such a talent to reach out to those young girls. I'm telling you, I'm not just saying that just to be saying that. You really do. Trust me, there are a lot of people I just don't like. I just don't. I'm not going to even lie to you. I don't agree with them. I don't like them. I don't necessarily agree with the lifestyle that's put out into culture, but I will say this. I was once young. I once made some of them same dumb mistakes. So I definitely cannot judge. I just think that as we get older and once we have children, we begin to think differently. We begin to look at it differently. We begin to look at our children differently. So I would say to you, Cardi, just remember that one day culture is going to grow up. And I know that you want the best for culture. I've heard you talk about culture, her having an education or her just going and starting her own business. And I know that you don't ever want your daughter to experience the things that women experience when it comes to their bodies, their sexuality and who they are. And since I know you have such a gift with young women and you're so talented, I would say please start pushing more toward that and finding a way to just really start pushing more toward, because I believe that that's the gift and talent that God gave you, not to swing from a pole and not to do your little vulgar stuff. And don't be cussing me out, girl, because I'm bowdy. I'm from them streets. I'll come back for you. I ain't scared of you, mama, because I'm saying it's pleasant and in a good way. So don't be talking about me, you girls out there. I'm saying it's pleasant towards you young ladies. I've been down that road. I've made the mistakes. But I think, again, when we get better, we do better, and we understand that these girls have to grow up. and they need better and they need things that's going to help them along the way. So with that said, let me get back. You artists, your words, your images, your messages matter. Do you understand that, guys? It matter. It matter. I don't care if you say, "Oh, I ain't got time for people, kids. I got my own life and my own kids." It matters, y'all. Those kids look up to y'all. When I was young, when you was young, who did you look up to? The people you looked up to was an adults. When I was young, who I look up to? Those people were all adults. Y'all, it matters. I'm telling you, it happens. Younger, like babies, look up to who? Who do little babies look up to? They look up to people bigger than them. They try to walk and talk like them. Who do youth and teens look up to? They look up to adults. So keep that in mind, y'all. It's just a given. It's just a given. Okay? God gave you your talent. Use it correctly, please. FCC and regulators, industry professionals, what can you do? Let adult entertainment be separate from your local television stations and your local radio stations. Please take responsibility and monitor content. Monitor too much cursing, too much vulgarness, too much sexual promiscuity, too much killing and murder. Everything has to be by killing and murder, too much war, too much just craziness that doesn't have an end to teaching you something. You understand what I'm saying? It's just for the glorification, for the glorification. I do believe that that's your responsibility to regulate. Somebody has to. I do. For your local. Keep it separate, guys. Please get back to integrity. Please start hiring people with integrity. Hire people with the desire to want to make this country better. Congress, same thing. Hire people with the desire, not with the title, not with Democrat, Republican, not with this and that, red and blue. Hire people with the desire that have a desire to make this country a better, sounder, more whole and healed space. And let's get to me. What can I do? What can I do? I can't just be about that talk. What can I do? Well, I know that the only way to do things better is that when you work for a company, sometimes you can't change the company. Sometimes you have to become the entrepreneur. So I decided to be the founder and owner of IBK Media Production. And that's what this show also about, the Critical Line Network, which is one of the projects up under that company, and be a part of the narrative of change, of good change, of positive change. No, not perfect. No, every story is not perfect. Some stories are nitty gritty. That's why I like film. Some stories need to be told in the fashion. I'm not talking about censorship, guys. Some stories need to be told in the fashion of how dark it really is. But there's a difference between glorifying the darkness and learning a lesson from the darkness. Make that distinguishment. And by using media and using it as a medium and or an instrument to heal, educate, inform, and inspire. Actions for good works instead of harm to the mind and harm to the psyche. That's what I decided to do. Those are the footsteps that I walk in. Have I been a perfect person? No. Has my life been perfect? No. Oh man, that's why I come up with the stories that I come up with. That's why I come up with the angles that I come up with. That's how I share my experiences because I understand. It doesn't mean you start perfect. It just means you decide to grow and evolve and share that on how others should also take the journey of growing and evolving as artists, as producers, as executives, as people in this universe. Okay? So I just wanted to leave you with that. I'm not going to stay long. I just wanted to leave you with that. When discussing shooters and them being influenced by violent content in music, television, and other media, it's important to balance the conversation around freedom of expression, which is our First Amendment, also with real world impact that certain forms of media can have on vulnerable individuals. Okay. So please kind of keep that in mind. I think people take the First Amendment out of context. Freedom of expression. Freedom of expression don't mean that you go around abusing people. It doesn't mean that you go around saying every vulgar thing in the world. Freedom of expression just means that as a human being, you are allowed to express, and nobody should oppress that expression in a more, I guess you can say, intelligent fashion. Not necessarily just doing all this vulgar stuff in the world and then screaming my First Amendment rights. And these things are affecting society. That doesn't make sense. I think people need to evaluate that and they need to be real about that. Because if I walk up to your child and I curse your child out and I say all kind of burger things and pull my titty out in front of your child and act a fool and be like, well, that's my First Amendment right to say what I want to say, do what I want to do. You're going to say, no, ma'am, it's not, you know. So again, so it is in this content that is being put out into the world. Okay. So hopefully, guys, we can kind of look at it that way. Okay. Now I'm finna get ready to jump off of here. I just wanted to make that. I just wanted to make that. I just wanted to make that. And I just wanted to share a little bit about how we can do it together, from the artists, from Congress, from parents, from people like us who have these platforms. And of course, y'all say we run our mouths. But when I created my platform, I wanted it to be more action based. I wanted to be able to say, what could we do? So it's always my goal that when I interview people on my platform, to ask insight, what can we do? What can Congress do? What can the bipartisans do? What can everybody do? What can the school do? What can the parents do? And this is in all of the content that I create. When I create something about business, I'm asking that question: what can you guys at the top of corporate do? And then I'm asking the question: what can employees do? So as you incorporate these ideas in your own personal life, and I make sure that I'm following these ideas in my own business and life, we're making this world a better place. At least we're striving to. I'm not saying we're going to be able to change all things in our lifetime. You have the next generations coming up, but at least we're leaving them something. We leaving the next generation something to fall on. If we leave them nothing but darkness, then all the next generation is going to have is darkness. Leave them light. Leave them truth. Don't get on these platforms and sell the same old coconuts and be telling the same old lies. If you've been through something, express your real truth. If people don't like it, tell them to take a hike. Express your truth. You don't know who's going to need it next. You don't know who needs your story. So I want to leave you with that. And I definitely want to say what you got to say. Say what you got to say. Say what you got to say. Leave your content. Or leave if you want me to make another video and expound upon it a little bit more. Maybe on First Amendments, maybe on religion, from a perspective of religion. Just expound. The one thing I did notice that they didn't say about these kids, they never mentioned drugs. They never mentioned that these kids was on drugs. But they did mention bullying. And they also mentioned, not to say that some of them didn't do drugs, but I'm just saying they didn't mention it in the report. So it goes to show you that bullying plays a role. You can only bully people for so long. Some people are fragile. They'll break. Some people can put up with a lot. People's dispositions are different. Now, I'm not excusing what these people have done. Don't think I'm doing that. People got to be held accountable because obviously if something is wrong. But what I am saying is that kind of look at how culture from the 90s on up has really influenced these mass shootings, because people need to take responsibility. Whether they want to or not, or whether they agree or not, it's the truth, y'all. We know it. We talk about it. It's the truth. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining in. Bless you, bless you, bless you. And please bless me back. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I got some more interviews coming up for you guys. And if there's topics that you want me to discuss, please email me and let me know. Or you can drop them in the comments below. If there's just different angles that you want me to touch on, or let's just say that you have a story that you like to share and you want to be on the Critical Line Network, come on, y'all, join it. You know what the Critical Line Network says? You know what that says? You know what that says? That it's critical. What we're going through today is critical. It's important. It's important that we address these issues in Congress, in the state, in church, in religion, in business, in all of these. It's important that we all engage together, that we don't keep each other's content down, that all of our voices be heard, that we don't cheat and steal and bite from each other's content. All of us have different angles. So instead of doing that, share our voices, lift each other's content up, and let's see if we can really make a difference, y'all. Let's see if we can really make a difference, okay? So, parents, I would say to you, start getting in Congress and start standing up. Start standing up. Don't be lazy. Don't just say, oh, that's just the way it is. Start getting some things signed in Congress, signed. Y'all, start fighting. Start fighting. Start dealing with the FCC. Get together. Write the FCC a petition. Get all the parents across the United States. Say, some parents may want this, some parents may want that, but this content is affecting all of our children. We can't help how some people raise their children, but it's affecting all of our children. And then that's the legacy that your guys are going to be leaving to the next generation when you're standing up and when you're making change. And then when you transition out this world, go on to your better next life or whatever it is, that next phase of whatever that life you have to go experience. Understand this world is still being here. There's still a transition going on. There's still people coming and there's still people going. What do you want to leave? What do you want to leave? So guys, start standing up, start challenging some of this stuff. Don't just say, well, that's just them, honey. That's them. We don't care. As long as we keep our kids safe. It doesn't work like that. It's going to eventually get to your kids too. It doesn't work like that, guys. Sorry. How many times did people think that we'll put rap in the black community? We'll let that all that vulgarness destroy them. It won't touch ours, baby. It touched everybody. It got to China. It got to everywhere, and and just the numbing down affected everyone. There's positive rap, there's good rap, and then there's a lot of negative stuff out there, and it affected everyone. So, guys, please understand that, okay? Bless you. Don't forget and financially support. You can check me out. Look at my description in the below. Guys, financially support if you can. Go to PayPal. Yeah, yeah, yeah. PayPal me. It's in the description. You can also cash out me if you do cash out. Okay? Or if you like to donate, hit me up at the Critical Line Network in my email and I will reach back out to you. If you would like to collaborate and you would like to discuss this further, let's collaborate. I love to talk about different issues. Maybe you have a topic you want to talk about. Let's share. Let's collaborate. Let's lift each other up. You guys have a blessed one. Bye bye.